Thank you. Let me first acknowledge everybody who's been part of getting us to this important set of announcements today. As always, I'd like to express my appreciation to the co-chairs of our transition, Jennifer Jones-Austin and Carl Weisbrod, to all of the folks we're bringing in today. The process was led by our Deputy Mayor, Alicia Glenn, who did a great job finding the best and the brightest for what we endeavor to do in the area of housing. Chief of Staff Laura Santucci, I want to thank her for her efforts. We are joined by a key member of our administration who will also be a part of this larger dream team, the President of EDC, Kyle Kimball. Where are you, Kyle? In the back. Thank you, Kyle. I should note yesterday another member of our dream team was announced, our City Planning Chair, Carl Weisbrod. So this will complete a large group of leaders who are going to work in common cause. And that's a big theme today. All of the different leaders in this administration who are going to work together to achieve our crucial goals to help the people of the city to address the affordability crisis and the inequality crisis in the city. All these pieces are going to synergize in that effort. I want to give a very special thank you to my friend Catherine Wilson. Where are you, Catherine? There you are. Okay. And your daughter is here, yes? Tell me your name again, daughter. Lisa. And I want to thank you. I know Reggie couldn't be here, but I want to thank you. Catherine and her son Reggie were wonderful hosts when I was here back during the summer, I guess it was. It seems like a long, long time ago, Catherine. And I want to thank Catherine for her kindness and her hospitality and for all she does to make life better for people here in the Lincoln houses. So thank you, Catherine. I want to thank two of my friends who are in elective life representing this community. Senator Bill Perkins, glad to see you here. Looking dapper, thank you. Looking dapper today, Senator. And Councilmember Inez Dickens, thank you so much for being here. Now, I want to tell you, when we gathered here last year, I really want people to understand this point. There were some who said, oh, look, you know, Reverend Sharpton and other leaders and activists brought us here, and, oh, it was a one-day thing. But you know what? If you're a conscious human being and you're actually trying to learn, it's not a one-day thing. I have to tell you, the time I spent here helped me to understand better what we're facing. I'd spent a lot of time in public housing buildings over the last 20 years plus. I was no stranger to them. But I have to say, hearing from so many folks who live in the Lincoln houses, seeing up close what folks were dealing with, feeling the rhythm of life here, if only for a short time, it's helpful. It's eye-opening and it's clarifying of the mission ahead. And I've stayed in touch with Catherine since, and I get daily or weekly updates on what's happening here, and that is a special and important perspective. So I'm honored to be here again because it, to me, symbolizes the fact that we are learning and then acting on what we learn. And I think for all the tenant leaders and activists and all the tenants across Lincoln houses, that's what they hope for in bringing us here. That would be a new beginning. It would be a start of a new relationship, and that's what we intend to do today, not just with NYCHA, but with all our efforts to address the affordability crisis in this city. We begin with a different attitude towards the people we're serving. We see the tenants of NYCHA as the people we work for, just like we work for all 8.4 million New Yorkers. We believe it is our mission to address this inequality crisis and this affordability crisis. It's what we came here to do. And we want to constantly be in dialogue with the people we're trying to serve, because in many, many situations, it's the tenants or the neighborhood residents who can best tell you the way to get things done, who can best tell you what's working or not working. And all the leaders I'm announcing today start with that understanding. This is why it's a team I'm so proud of, because I understand it all begins with the people we're here to serve. We are going to focus like a laser on these problems, and we are inspired because we see the faces of the people we're serving. We know their families. We feel that obligation because we're all part of the larger family that makes up this city. Now, we know that the inequality crisis we face has many components. We know it has many causes over decades. But one of the most powerful driving forces has been the affordable housing crisis, has been the difficulty that people have had in finding housing they could afford, and that crisis has grown and grown rapidly in recent years. And a family has to make a decent income to live in this town to begin with. But with wages stagnant, benefits questionable, but housing prices ever rising, you can see how many, many middle class and working class and lower income folks were behind the 8 ball more and more. And it's our job to address this. We know it's a problem, again, with many causes, many that go far beyond the boundaries of the 5 boroughs. And we know that we could do so much better if we had stronger partners, particularly at the federal level, willing to help us. But in the end, it's our obligation to take care of our own people. And we have to address this affordability crisis head on, because it undergirds the entire larger inequality crisis. So we see the symptoms everywhere. Once solidly middle-class families now experiencing economic uncertainty. Seniors who helped to build neighborhoods now being forced out of them. Public housing, once such a strong pillar of our efforts to provide affordability, suffering from federal disinvestment and from neglect. These crises, again, are not all of the city's making, but it is our responsibility nonetheless to address them, and we believe we can. We can make this one city. We can make this a city where we all rise together. We do that by focusing on housing policies that don't just consider those at the very top, but also focus relentlessly on those who are struggling to make it in this city. So you can clap for that. And it's not just about building new units or preserving the units we had. It's also about putting New Yorkers to work in the process, people who live in the 5 boroughs, people who live in public housing, making sure they also get opportunity in the very process of creating and preserving affordable housing, of improving NYCHA, making sure that everything we do is an engine of growth for each community on many, many levels. Today we're putting in place an incredible leadership team. I have been at this for a long time. As some of you may know, I was the regional director for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in another life long ago, it seems. And I know a lot about the folks who make up the world of affordable housing and the talent base, and we have literally put together a dream team here. And we worked long and hard to get the right talent in place, and our efforts have paid off. And I want to thank again Deputy Mayor Alicia Glenn for leading this effort with the relentlessness for which she is so well known to bring together an assemblage of talent up to this task. So we're going to talk about 3 agencies today, NYCHA, HPD, and HDC. Let's begin with NYCHA. I can safely say, I've been in government a long time. I know people in government all over the country. I can safely say one of the toughest jobs in the United States of America is running NYCHA. It's one of the toughest jobs, certainly in the public sector anywhere. And we seek not only to run it and run it well, but to reform it at the same time. NYCHA is the largest public housing authority in the nation, with well over 400,000 tenants living in NYCHA buildings, another almost 200,000 served by NYCHA through the Section 8 program. If you combine those 2 groups of people being served by NYCHA, the tenants and the Section 8 recipients, the total number of people served by NYCHA is greater than the population of the city of Boston. So it gives you a sense of just how profound the task is. And again, we're talking about buildings that in many cases have gone through decades of disrepair and disinvestment. We're responsible. We are responsible for the health and safety of every one of these tenants. I want to key in on that point for a moment. I spoke a little bit about this yesterday when we named Carl Weisbrod City Planning Chair. The buck stops at City Hall from now on when it comes to NYCHA. I want this to be abundantly clear. In the past administrations, in the silos that were created, NYCHA was treated, I think, sometimes as a stepchild, sometimes as something separate. I often make the point that Mayor Bloomberg strenuously fought for mayoral control of education, and he was right to do so, in my opinion. But he did not provide the kind of mayoral leadership for NYCHA that it needed. I've said to the folks that we're naming today to lead NYCHA that they can expect to spend a lot of time at City Hall, because I consider myself ultimately responsible for what we do at NYCHA. And so we see our mutual responsibility as protecting our tenants, protecting them against crime, protecting them against disrepair, ensuring their homes are livable, and helping so many of them who are still struggling with the effects of Sandy. We're committed to bringing our public housing into a state of good repair. We're committed to protecting it as the bedrock of affordable housing in this city. Let me clarify. There have been honest concerns among public housing tenants for many years now that there may be some lurking possibilities of privatization of public housing units. That is never, ever going to happen on our watch. We will not allow any privatization of NYCHA units. We are committed to using our public housing to protect people and lift them up and help them through this crisis we face, this affordability and inequality crisis. And then also, there are some other personal crises that NYCHA participates in addressing. For some who have been victims of domestic violence, for some who have been homeless, NYCHA has offered a safe haven. Now, all of that needs to happen. That new focus and commitment, that reform has to happen while we simultaneously modernize, retrofit our buildings and bring our buildings, many of them, again, decades old, into the 21st century. So we have an effort to stabilize and strengthen what we're doing while simultaneously moving on a path of reform. It's a mission that will make our city more resilient in many ways, and I'm not just talking about physical resiliency. I'm talking about the resiliency of our people as a whole. If we give people a decent way of life, if we give them a path forward economically, if we give them hope, that's what makes for a strong and resilient city. And we are going to be very focused on creating employment opportunities for NYCHA residents in ways that have not been seen before. I like you. You're coming, yes we have, and you're coming to all my press conferences from now on. Now, I want to emphasize, I'm about to talk about Shola Olatoye. I've been working on that. Olatoye. Shola, I've been practicing Yoruba all day.
Better than me, Mr. Mayor.
Olatoye. Yeah, that's right. That's right. What's the whole first name?
Oye Shola
Olatoye.
Olatoye.
And what's the whole first name mean?
God's gracious gift.
Okay.
No pressure.
No pressure. So I'm going to talk about Shola, and one of the things I want to emphasize is, to her great credit, Shola asked about the vision of where we move forward. We said we're committed to creating those employment opportunities. We said we're committed to retrofitting buildings so they're not only energy efficient, and by the way, the NYCHA buildings offer us the greatest front anywhere in the city to make a massive step forward on energy efficiency and addressing climate change. If we retrofit these buildings, it will take time, but if we retrofit these buildings, it's one of the greatest things New York City can do to address climate change from our own perspective. By the way, guess who we can get a lot of jobs for in the process? NYCHA residents. So this is the kind of thing we're charging Shola with doing. We're charging her with doing an act of repair and not the physical repairs. I'm going to talk about Cecil House in a moment. I think he's done extraordinary things in advancing the physical repairs. There's some human repair that has to happen too. We need to restore faith with tenants. We need to restore faith with communities. We need to restore faith with elected officials, many of them who've worked hard to try and help NYCHA and often got a cold shoulder. Shola is going to be responsible for that. And by the way, something I've spoken about often, restoring the honest deal that should exist between Washington and our cities. Now, I'm not asking Shola to do that single-handedly, but part of her task will be to help us forge a coalition with cities and states around the country to start to change the rules of the game in Washington, because Washington cannot stay out of the housing business. Washington cannot neglect cities and ignore the need to create affordable housing, because if Washington does that, the cities can't move forward and our nation can't move forward. We're the economic engines, and we need to get Washington back in the business of supporting our cities. So Shola Olatoye will serve as the next chair of the New York City Housing Authority. Shola's worked long and hard to get to where she is today. Her father immigrated to the United States from Nigeria, and she grew up, like so many in this city, like I did as well, in a single-parent home. She worked hard, she reached for high goals, and she succeeded. And she inspired the people around her in the process. First, at Wesleyan university or college? University. And then she got her graduate degree at my alma mater, NYU, or as a graduate student. Yes, you can clap for NYU. There you go.
The chief is Dr. Wagner.
All right. At the Wagner School. Let's shout at the Wagner School for public service, where she was, as a graduate student, she was chosen as the graduation speaker, a first for a university that often attracts celebrities and luminaries to that role. But Shola's story and her vision were inspirational, and she's known among her colleagues for a large, loving, extended family, I think some of whom are here today. Yes? Family, are you here? All right, excellent. And we're thrilled they're here today. Shola has incredible experience, and it's hands-on experience. She knows the theory, and she knows the vision of how we create affordable housing, how we protect public housing, but a lot of what she's done is also very, very hands-on. She's a respected coalition builder who's worked on major affordable housing projects across the city. She is someone who's also worked to address inequality in other forms before. She was an active leader of the Campaign for Fiscal Equity, which successfully fought to get New York City public schools our fair share of funding from Albany. She now serves as the Vice President and New York Market Leader for Enterprise Community Partners, which has helped build and preserve more than 44,000 units of low-income housing. And she most especially understands the stakeholders, understands the grassroots. Shola told me in the last days about some of her experiences working with public housing tenants, bringing them into the decision-making process at places like Mother Gaston houses in Brooklyn, and her commitment to listening to tenants and working with tenants, and the fact that it's something that is part of her family experience as well. She understands what it takes to bring communities together with public agencies and private partners to get the kind of outcomes we need, and she is ready to lead this great agency. Let me welcome our new NYCHA chair, Shola Olatoye. Do you want the step, or do you feel good? You feel good?
I have 3-inch heels on. I'm good.
All right.
I'm good. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Mayor de Blasio, for this extraordinary opportunity to serve the people of New York City. I'm honored to stand here with you today, Deputy Mayor Alicia Glenn, and the team of fantastic housing and finance professionals that you've assembled. I'm here because of the mayor's commitment to making NYCHA a central component to his 5-borough plan to create and preserve 200,000 affordable housing units. The city's economy depends on its workers being able to live here. Promoting the affordable housing is the morally right thing to do. It also creates economic opportunity and helps make this city the greatest city in the world. The Housing Authority provides affordable housing to some 600,000 working-class people who urgently need it. The agency needs to run effectively and efficiently. Our residents deserve it and depend on it. My late grandmother was one of those people. She worked as a housekeeper and lived for many years in the Albany houses in Brooklyn. I grew up in Waterbury, Connecticut, and my mother and I would visit her regularly. We would take the Peter Pan bus to the city, passing right down here on 5th Avenue. The apartment made a huge difference in my grandmother's life and provided peace of mind to others in our family. But it was far from perfect. As an agency, I recognize that we have many accomplishments to be proud of, but we have a long way to go. So here are my 3 goals, and for everyone who knows me, I like things in 3s. The first, as the mayor said, restore and rebuild NYCHA. We must invest in the people, our residents, our team members, and our communities. We will take a collaborative and disciplined approach. 2, we want to ensure a green and sustainable NYCHA. More than 8% of the city's housing stock is public housing developments. Our physical plant is both the answer and the challenge for NYCHA. I want a plan to green and retrofit existing buildings, not only because it's the right thing to do for the health of our residents and our children, but it's the financially prudent thing to do for the long-term health of NYCHA. 3, I want to create a thoughtful but practical plan with these fantastic people here assembled today for all of NYCHA that delivers benefits to our residents, that's issue number one, reconnects our buildings to their communities, and contributes to the mayor's affordable housing plan. So as the mayor said, I've been blessed to have a life filled with loving and supportive members and friends, many of whom are here today. Some of the most dynamic women that you'll ever meet, members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Just put that out there. And yes. And family. My boys, Alexander and Rowan, who keep us laughing and ever humble. Mr. Mayor, they were very excited to meet you today, but they really just want to see the Lego movie afterwards. So
I feel the same way.
Matthew, my partner in all things, thank you for your love and patience and support every day and all day. And thank you.
Shola has, as you can see, a lot of vision, a lot of drive, and I have to emphasize she will not be doing this alone. We're all in this together. As I said, the whole team, starting with Alicia and I at City Hall, will be working to support her efforts. And she's also going to have the great blessing of an experienced general manager at NYCHA, working with her to manage the thousands of workers for NYCHA and the complex day-to-day operations. This is a city unto itself. And managing it effectively takes extraordinary talent and experience. Now, I'm going to say up front something that is hardly a state secret. Made no secret of my disagreements with Mayor Bloomberg's policies related to NYCHA. I've made no secret of my disagreements with the previous chair of NYCHA, John Rhea. A lot has to change in the approach, and we're resolute about that. But despite the problems I saw in the approach from City Hall and the approach from the former chairman of NYCHA, I saw a bright point and a bright spot in what the general manager over this last year and a half has been doing. A man who had a grasp on the agency's challenge and during his short tenure started innovating new ways to tackle old problems. As I got to know Cecil House, I was struck by his ability to cut through some of the bureaucracy and cut through some of the stalling and actually achieve solutions that helped everyday tenants. Now, as public advocate, and a number of you will remember, the very top of the work we did was our worst landlords watch list focused on private sector landlords, and then we started turning similar attention to NYCHA and found a repair backlog that was deeply troubling. The more I worked with Cecil, the more I came to realize that he was the person driving the effort to resolve that backlog effectively. And under Cecil now, average wait times for basic maintenance have shrunk from a staggering and unacceptable 134 days of wait time to just 10 days. So the work is not nearly done, and the quality and comprehensiveness of our repairs has to get better. And by the way, we have to get the scaffolding down here at Lincoln Houses, and soon. I remember what you told me. So, Cecil, there, put that on your to-do list. I'll be back. Catherine's going to be calling me and asking, what about the scaffolding? This is my subversive side coming out. I'm trying to raise the bar. Calling an audible. Omaha. We need systematic fixes to get to the root of the problem of our aging buildings. And Cecil's the person to do it. And by the way, if you get to know Cecil, and I've been struck by this, Cecil grew up understanding the challenges of the working man and woman. Grew up in southwestern Virginia, son of a coal miner who went through all the challenges and agonies that go with that extraordinarily difficult profession. Coal miner, as his mother a nurse's aide, as his father a nurse's aide as his mother. And coming from a small town and a working class background in a place where it would have been easy not to have a lot of hope, he worked his way up to the University of Virginia and then to Harvard. And his tenacity has served him well throughout. And I'm pleased that we are reappointing him as the general manager of NYCHA. Cecil House.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You can almost have exactly the same microphone as
That
me.
works.
That's very
That's
good.
okay. I need a couple inches. Just on that scaffolding, we are doing work here, so as soon as we're finished fixing the facades, we're going to get rid of it.
Those ladies.
We're working on it. That's my commitment.
They're watching.
And
They're
as
the
I know,
judges.
we'll follow up.
See, this is the panel of judges right here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor Glenn, for this great privilege and the responsibility that goes along with it. I welcome this opportunity to help move NYCHA forward, and especially to help meet the challenge that the mayor has set, this ambitious goal of creating and preserving 200,000 units of affordable housing. I also look forward to working closely with our Deputy Mayor Glenn, Chair Alotier. And it sounds pretty good. Chair, we'll work on it.
Wait. Olatoye.
Olatoye. Okay, we'll work on it. HPD and HDC, I think, are going to be critical partners as well, and the rest of the team to achieve that goal. You know, I didn't have the good fortune, as the mayor indicated, of growing up in this great city. But I came here right after I finished my schooling. And when my husband and I decided that we were going to have children, there was no other place that we wanted to be than right here in New York City. This is where we want our children to grow up. It is the people of New York, their rich diversity, their engagement and work ethic that make New York the world's global center and that distinguishes it from the other great cities in the world. And the fact that New York City has not turned its back on its public housing is another factor that distinguishes us from all other cities. Our public housing developments peppered throughout our city, in almost every neighborhood, serving low-income New Yorkers, stand as the foundation of affordable housing in the city. They serve as homes for over 400,000 New Yorkers, and NYCHA provides housing assistance through vouchers to another 90,000 families, providing shelter for another over 200,000 New Yorkers. And I cannot leave here without talking about the thousands of NYCHA employees that work every day, sometimes very long hours, often with very limited resources, to provide decent and affordable housing to the hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers that live at NYCHA. I look forward to continuing this work with each of you to address this great challenge that the mayor has set for us. Now, with this team in place, we can turn ourselves in earnest to addressing the operating needs of these developments. We can provide a higher quality of service to our residents. We can re-engage residents in determining the direction of their developments. We can work to create and preserve even more units of affordable housing. We can start to implement and realize this vision that the mayor has set. I look forward to working with Shola.
There you go. You said that beautifully.
And the administration. I'm a quick learner. To make New Yorkers proud of their public housing again. You know, we've never had leadership this committed to making that happen. And to treating our NYCHA residents with the same respect that every tenant gets in this city. So I'm ready to roll up my sleeves with the rest of the team, and I think we're going to change a few things.
There you go. Well said. Well said. Now, as you can hear, we have a very forceful approach and a very comprehensive approach to dealing with the housing needs of all our people. And we're not going to let the traditional barriers among agencies stand in the way of tackling this affordability crisis. It's been very common for agencies to be ships passing in the night, not on the same agenda, not working together. We are committed to changing that. If we combine all our resources and our efforts, we can do amazing things for the people of this city. And of course, the Department of Housing, Preservation, and Development is always on the front line of the work of protecting our tenants and building and preserving affordable housing for our people. It's amazing what HPD does. HPD protects tenants from harassment and neglect. It protects tenants when they don't have heat or hot water, something I've learned a lot about through our worst landlords watch list that HPD has been our real partner in. works with property owners to make sure they're maintaining and improving their buildings. It uses all the tools available to secure long-term viability of existing affordable housing units and spurs new development of affordable housing, both through private sector investment and nonprofit development. It's a huge and complicated task, and obviously the agency that will be in the front line of our goal of creating 200,000 units and preserving 200,000 units of affordable housing over the next 10 years, HPD will be leading that extraordinarily strategic and creative effort. And the person we've chosen to lead HPD is Vicki Bean. Vicki is currently the director of NYU's Furman Center for Real Estate and Urban Policy. And she's been on the cutting edge of innovating new policies to spur affordable development. She is regarded as one of the great experts in this city on housing development and zoning. And she's going to bring that intellect and that knowledge to bear as we reach for this ambitious yet crucial goal. Most recently, she's been one of the leaders in assessing the long-term impact of Superstorm Sandy on our housing and neighborhoods and figuring out how we as a city can better respond to these challenges. She knows our communities, she knows our private sector, our nonprofit sector, and she knows what government has done and what government should do better to spur affordable housing in this town. She's also done, I don't know how much you're going to talk about, so I'm going to just cue you here. You're going to talk about that little court you used to work with?
No.
No, I'm going to talk about it then. I'm going to talk, are you going to talk about how you got to Colorado State? Yes. All right. She's going to talk to you about how she got to Colorado State, which is priceless. But I'm going to tell you that just as Cecil grew up in a coal mining town, Vicki grew up in a uranium mining town. And again, with parents who worked so hard, but probably didn't envision the day when Vicki would be standing here. And she worked hard. She brought everything she had to bear to the situation. You're going to hear about her striking academic progress and where it led her. I can simply say that after achieving a lot in the world of academics, she had an opportunity to clerk for a judge, and she was so good that the judge she clerked for was U.S. Supreme Court Justice Harry Blackmun, which gives you an indication of the fortitude and ability of Vicki Bean. Later, she served as, give me the Iran-Contra title?
Special Assistant Prosecutor.
Special Assistant Prosecutor in the Iran-Contra case, giving you a sense of the high wire that Vicki's already walked. So this is not your grandfather's HPD commissioner. Okay? This is an agile, strategic, strong, creative HPD commissioner with an extraordinary story of starting with little and working her way to the top. And she's going to exemplify our efforts to create that which people may not think can be achieved here in New York City, but which I assure you we will achieve. I'm happy to welcome our new commissioner for HPD, Vicki Bean. Now you may get to step. Hold on.
Okay.
Whoops. You get to step.
Trust
You didn't wear
trust me not to fall in.
Your heels
right?
were not
Okay.
as big.
Okay. It's a great honor to join Mayor de Blasio and Deputy Mayor Alicia Glenn and this wonderful, wonderful, really brain trust, along with Kyle and Carl and so many others at City Hall, to ensure that every New Yorker has safe, quality, affordable home in a neighborhood that helps its residents build better lives for themselves and their children. No city can call itself great when people are forced to choose between skipping the rent or seeing their kids go hungry, between lowering the heat or not buying medicine for their partner. No one should have to force themselves at the end of the day to close their eyes to mold and mice and mildew and misery of dilapidated housing. And no city can thrive when luxury penthouses look over neighborhoods where parents have to panic about whether their kids can make it home from school safely, where talented people willing to work can't find jobs, and where the street is marked by decay rather than the vibrant energy that makes New York City great. We stand at an incredible moment to take hold of this affordable housing program. The affordable housing problem. we now have this incredible opportunity to make New York City a 21st century progressive city. We have a mayor who not only has an ambitious agenda and a clear vision about equality, but actually knows housing from his days as regional administrator of HUD. And we work with a deputy mayor who has spent her life trying to find creative ways to build neighborhoods. We have a mandate from the voters to make New York City a place of opportunity, not just for the fortunate, but for every family and every neighborhood. We have challenges to be sure, but we have a real chance to show the world that you can have a city that's both thriving and equitable, that provides parks and arts and beauty to enrich every neighborhood, that helps every New Yorker build the life that she or he wants. I'm delighted to have the honor of joining the mayor and his team. It's daunting, to be sure, especially when I think that we're charged with building or preserving 200,000 units at least. And I realized that that was exactly 1,000 times more units than were in my town that I grew up in. So I grew up in a mining town, as the mayor said, Natarita, Colorado. My father, who was an auto mechanic, moved there during the boom years when we were providing vanadium for the Cold War. But we arrived just in time for the bust of the 70s, the 60s and the 70s, a bust that has continued to this day. It was a town that lacked hope. It was a town that lacked basic infrastructure and services. It was a town where young men died in drunk driving or drugs or violence, and where girls usually had to assume the responsibilities of parenthood before they even got their learner's permit. It turned out that our houses and our trailers were built on the radioactive waste that came from the mines. Some people think that gives me a glow, but I would have preferred to live without it. We lived in a corrugated tin Quonset hut that was my father's shop, and we lived behind the shop. And my sister and I spent many a long night in the basement trying to get over the fumes from the radiator coolant and the battery acid that was just on the other side of the door. I have very fond memories of having a wonderful family, but Natarita was not a neighborhood of opportunity. It closed doors rather than opening possibilities. I was lucky to escape. I had been cooking for my family since I was about 12 because my mother was not a good cook. God bless her. That enabled me the incredible good luck of winning a cooking scholarship that allowed me to be the first in my family to go to college and to finish college. I had a wonderful professor who suggested in college that I send a letter applying for an internship here in New York with Consumer Reports magazine. And they saw something in me and invited me to come to New York. I had more sense of adventure than good sense. So I said, of course. And that was really made possible by the fact that I lucked into clean, safe, affordable housing, the Webster Apartments for Women on 34th Street and 9th Avenue, where I paid $50 a month for a nice little room. Yeah, really. Well, this was 1974, but okay. But it was safe, and it was clean, and it kept me going. I have built a life that's incredible. I have a wonderful husband who's my best friend and a great helpmate who came also to New York from far away, from Argentina. I have two wonderful children, my son, who's a New York City Urban Fellow, and my daughter, who's a freshman at Swarthmore College. And I have had wonderful opportunities with Justice Blackmun and with others, and I owe that all to the fact that I could come to a city like New York, and I could live in affordable housing and make something of my life. And I want all New Yorkers to have that. I want New York to be that kind of beacon of opportunity for everyone. I want us to provide a neighborhood that allows people to get the education and the jobs that they want, to develop friendships and families that sustain them, to build the meaningful lives. And at the end of the day, I want them to be able to say, My neighborhood helped. My neighborhood opened doors. I'm honored to be able to give back to the city that's given so much to me, and I'm honored to work with this team.
Beautiful. 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 I've never met anyone before who got to college because they won a cooking contest, and I think it's amazing. And for those of you asking, it was orange glazed pork chops. Because of those orange glazed pork chops, we now have a new HPD commissioner. So now, to achieve the final announcement is one that is crucial because in the end, to make all these great things happen, you need to pay for it. We are adamant about creating this affordable housing. We're adamant about creating opportunity. And to do that, we need all of these efforts supported by a great leader at the Housing Development Corporation. HDC is the engine that helps finance and build affordable housing across the city. And leading HDC will require someone who can get all of the parties around the table, government, nonprofit, private sector, et cetera, and who understands the numbers, understands the mechanics, understands how to drive things to a finished product. And Gary Rodney is that person. He is the son of Haitian immigrants. And as we interviewed together, it dawned on me, his answers were leading me to the realization that he came from the town I grew up in, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Now, he went to a different high school than mine because he didn't think mine was good enough, but that's okay. Tell that to Patrick Ewing and Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. We all went to Cambridge Trinity Latin. We came out okay. But Gary grew up in an immigrant family that believed in coming to our town that they could make something of themselves. And he has the drive and he has the understanding of what people struggle through. And he learned it at his kitchen table and then he applied it in everything he did in his education, in his work ahead. Earlier in his career, he was already at HDC as Vice President for Development and did great work helping to move forward affordable housing in this city. More recently, he's been Executive Vice President for Development at Omni, New York, which has led the renovation of some of the most distressed buildings in the Bronx and Upper Manhattan. Gary was in the thick of this, and he helped to create some of these turnarounds that were least likely, but that he knew that he could achieve with his colleagues. And part of what made it work was tenants were a part of the process. Tenants were part of the discussion of how to make these troubled developments turn around. And it was a precondition, from Gary's point of view, that rents remain affordable while conditions dramatically improved. So I want you to hear that combination. It's crucial. He believed in involving tenants, he believed in keeping housing affordable, and yet felt the obligation to ensure the plan would improve the material reality of the tenants simultaneously. That is what we have to do in each and every development, all at the same time. And these turnarounds are an example of the kind of miracles that Gary Rodney has already worked. And now he is most decidedly ready for a bigger stage, ready to take this spirit of reform and this sense of know-how to the Housing Development Corporation as its new president. We welcome Gary Rodney.
I don't get this.
No, you can have it if you like.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you. First, I would like to thank Mayor de Blasio and Deputy Mayor Glenn for this extraordinary honor. I'm truly excited to return to HDC, which was a place that became my home away from home for a number of years early in my career. I spent about 5 years at HDC, where I was involved at one point or another in every type of financing that the agency was able to structure. Finding creative ways to finance and develop affordable housing has been my life for the last 15 years. And some of the most challenging and rewarding times for me during my career, as the mayor mentioned, has been during my time at Omni, New York. At Omni, I structured the financing for the acquisition, renovation, and preservation of some of the most troubled and distressed properties here in the city. And while many people were running away from them, we were there to take over these buildings, renovate them with the tenants in place, and provide a clean, safe, and affordable environment for these people to live in. And honestly, for me, that's what today is all about. You know, This team has been assembled here to provide what every person in this city deserves, regardless of their income. A clean, decent, affordable place to live, to raise your family, and a place that you can call home. Growing up as the son of immigrants, that was something that was very key in my home. My parents worked hard every day, and it was, you had to kind of save your eggs and find a place for you to live. And that's what we're here to do. Everybody knows this mayor has many ambitious goals, and his housing plan of creating or preserving 200,000 units is probably at the top of the list. But this plan doesn't get accomplished by each agency working separately, which I think is very telling that we're all here together right now. Between everybody at City Hall, our partners at HPD and NYCHA, we're going to get this done. And this works with everybody here, our partners in the private sector, the banks, the real estate developers, the investors, the nonprofit groups, the housing advocates, the local community groups in these neighborhoods that we serve, and everybody else. This collaborative approach is what we need to get this done. Myself and the rest of the HDC team are going to be here to structure the financing that will help us reach this goal, but we're also going to find new ways to get there. My charge is to turn it up a notch. You know, we're going to get this done.
Perfect.
And we're going to get more shovels in the ground. We're going to rehabilitate more buildings. We're going to create jobs for everybody in this city. And we're really going to get this affordable housing pipeline moving. So thank you.
Turn it up. Turn it up. Turn up the volume. Now, a moment before we take your questions. Again, we'll start with on-topic. We'll go to off-topic after. First, en español. Vamos a enfocarnos bien en los problemas que enfrentan ustedes y sus familias, porque estos problemas están muy ligados a la crisis mayor que enfrenta esta ciudad. Pocas cosas han complicado más la desigualdad en nuestra ciudad que la falta de vivienda asequible. Esta crisis no son todas por culpa de la ciudad, pero tenemos el deber de atenderlas y creemos que podemos hacerlo. All right, with that, muchas gracias, señor senador. With that, we will take your questions in Spanish only. Courtney, you're certainly prepared, Courtney, for the Spanish-only section of our press conference. We meant to announce it in advance, but we forgot. Sí, Courtney. Estoy listo, Courtney. ¿Sí? ¿Hay un problema? Courtney, ¿hay un problema? All right, Courtney's not prepared. We're going to allow her to do it in English.
All right. Mr. Mayor, you spoke about Washington once again. This is something that we've heard from the Bloomberg administration as well. How is talking about the funding issue with Washington, not perhaps just punting the NYCHA financial problem down to DC? That's the first part. The second part is thinking about NYCHA's financial problems. Is the land lease issue completely dead? Is it not going to happen? And we would love to get a response also from Ms. Olatoye.
Second syllable, Olatoye. You know, you're Spanish, you're Yoruba, you're really off today. You gotta, this is New York City, Courtney. We're supposed to be cosmopolitan. Let's bring it up a notch. So, on the larger question, I think what we're setting here is a clear understanding. We're going to take the NYCHA challenges head on with what we have today. We are not saying until Washington does what it should have done long ago that we're throwing up our hands. In fact, quite the opposite. We're saying this is a mayoral responsibility. We've chosen a team that represents the values of this administration and has the capacity to make real changes within the dynamics we now face. But we know we can't go to all the places we should go without real federal aid, and we know there's been massive federal disinvestment over decades, going back to Reagan. And so it's really a two-track strategy. In the first instance, we're going to do all we can with what we have and be as creative as possible in that process. And second, we are going to start building a coalition nationally to address this issue. I think The difference is, with all due respect to Mayor Bloomberg, who had some impressive coalitions on some issues, like gun control, for example, and one that I've recently joined, he didn't apply the same kind of focus to creating a coalition on the economic issues that really are the bread and butter for this city. And I think there's been an attitude in the national debate that we have to throw up our hands in the face of the Tea Party, and it's some kind of fixed asset that we can't overcome. The Tea Party wasn't around 10 years ago. This is a new phenomenon that is not the shape of things to come. It's not something we're going to allow to dominate our national life, and we have to go on a counteroffensive. So the point is that cities and states all over the country are suffering because the Congress will not support the president's core notion of investing in our cities. We have to break through that. It will not happen tomorrow. Probably won't happen in this election, but it has to happen. And my argument has always been that if you look at the districts represented by Tea Party members, they include cities in them. And it's time for those cities to speak out and no longer accept an unacceptable status quo. Thank you. On the second question, the Bloomberg approach to development in NYCHA was unacceptable. And I stood against it, and we did everything in our power, and I think succeeded in ending that approach. The only way we're going to consider development is with the tenants. And one of the things SHOLA will focus on is repairing the relationship with the tenants. And if we can find a way to create a responsible path forward with tenants that's transparent, where there's real guarantees of what the benefits will be to tenants in the immediate area, that's a very worthy proposal to discuss. But we're not there yet. So we're leaving that door open, but we have to create a groundwork of trust and transparency to find a way to do development that everyone can believe in. That might actually help address some of the challenges that NYCHA faces. And that's going to take some real work, and first and foremost, repairing a relationship that is broken between the authority and its tenants. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I exhausted myself. Please, you don't need the step.
I'm good. So I think the first thing, great question. The mayor talked about a collaborative approach, and I think one of the reasons why he selected and Deputy Mayor selected me is because of the work that we've been able to do, whether at Enterprise or beyond, to work with our partners in Washington. And I think this is an absolute reset, to use the mayor's language, and in addition to ensuring that our tenants are at the core of our approach to development at NYCHA. We have a fantastic group of professionals where we're really going to avail ourselves of the tools that NYCHA needs to think about as it builds out, as we think about a development plan.
Okay. Do you want to address the land lease thing, though? She'd asked about the land lease.
Are you going to become the press conference coordinator?
I think, again, I think the mayor said that we are, again, with tenants, starting with our tenants at the core of what we do, and repairing the important relationships to rebuild some of that trust is really critical. The door is open, and we're looking at all of the tools at our disposal to make a better and stronger NYCHA.
Okay. Thank you. Ozzy.
Can you just elaborate a little bit on
Why is your coat on, Ozzy?
Because I was distracted by all the linguistics.
So you will speak in Spanish, though.
I will try. Cuanto.
Okay. On second thought, let's stay with English.
How are you going to measure the public sentiment for a plan for something like the NYCHA infill plan? Because one of the great debates in New York about development is there's always someone who's going to be outraged. There's always going to be someone who says, let's not do this. How exactly are you going to measure when is it appropriate for something like this? And also, if we can get the HCC Commission to sort of weigh in on the financing of a plan like the infill plan that's being discussed.
Yeah, I think the point is that, again, we're starting with a very blank slate here because we reject the previous approach. And so this is a total reset. And it's a reset that we will take time to work through because it begins with a different kind of dialogue with our tenants. How do you know when something's working? You know when tenants feel that they can see the plan as believable, as there being, bluntly, something in it for them, in the best sense of the word. A plan, look, I think what a lot of tenants felt with the previous plan was it might be a pathway to privatization of their units. I think anyone who had that fear was right to stand up and speak out, because if you didn't believe that your tenants were going to, your units were going to be safe, I mean, what could be more fundamental? So job one, we have to develop the kind of relationship with our tenants where it's abundantly clear that we believe in the long-term future of NYCHA. Part two, we have to show that anything we do would directly benefit tenants in the surrounding buildings and help the health and well-being of their buildings. Part three, we have to show people that there's going to be real employment opportunities in the process. And part four, you have to show there's transparency and believability in the plan. It's a lot to put together. If we can achieve a plan like that in any given instance and the tenants feel good about it, that's the kind of thing we'd look at. Will there be some people who disagree? Yeah, it's New York City. But that's a very high bar we're setting on purpose. And it's a bar we think we can reach potentially, but we'll know it when we get there. In terms of financing, let me just hear your question again for Gary and Vicky.
From the HTC Commissioner, your thoughts on the NYCHA?
HTC Commissioner, President. You have to call him Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Disrespect levels are high.
No, it's the media.
Yeah. I'm glad you admitted, Ozzie. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you said it.
Your thoughts about creative ways of funding NYCHA and specifically the infill plan?
Well, I guess first and foremost is going to be whatever program or parameters that we're able to develop for these various properties. And once that kind of structure is put in place and we discuss what the affordability levels can be, it's my job to figure out how we can get that financed. I'm not trying to dance around it, but part of that becomes...
Chicken and egg.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Part of that depends on what we try to structure and what we want to put in place. And based on that, I will go out to the lenders, I will go out to the developers, and I will come up with a plan to actually implement that.
Let me just say also that I was very straightforward with Shola that the repair of the relationship with tenants is a huge piece of this job. And again, I was struck by her previous good works bringing tenants together with other agencies for common cause. So this is something we have to do in stages. But we'll know, I think it's a kind of human common sense thing, we'll know when we have a real reset in the relationship and when we're able to show people that there's a follow-through. And by the way, what Cecil's been doing on the repairs is an important part of it, and that work has to continue and deepen. When folks in the Lincoln houses see repairs happen more readily, and it's time to talk about other ideas, I'm not saying here, but any other place, it's a different relationship when you have delivered for people and when you've been consistent. And so that work has to be done first. Yes?
But are there other ideas in addition to possibly leasing land? I mean, during the campaign you also talked about stopping payments to NYPD. That's not necessarily revenue raising, but I wanted to know where you stand now on that. But certainly, can you talk about other revenue raising ideas other than land leasing?
I'm going to start, and then maybe Shola or Cecil have anything to add. That's great. With the number of things we talked about last year that were part of the platform, we're going to, piece by piece, talk about what we intend to achieve. Obviously, the issue of the police costs is something we'll address in some combination of the February budget plan and the April budget plan. So we are going to be rolling out piece by piece as we are ready some of the different pieces that can be helpful to the stability of NYCHA. Obviously, it was crucial to first get the leadership team in place and then start building out those approaches. But this is work that never ends, I want to emphasize. When you don't have the partnership you should have from the federal government, again, we don't curse the darkness here. We light a single candle and say, what can we do with what we have in creative approaches? One of the issues is some of the expenses have been forced on NYCHA unfairly, but there are many other fronts that we can work on. Any particular you want to add?
I would just add that, a budget obviously is both revenue and expenses, and as we begin to look at a real retrofit plan for NYCHA, really addressing some of the significant operating costs for buildings that were built almost a half a century ago, I think, that activity coupled with, changes like the plan that, a long-term development plan, will get us on a path that is more financially sustainable. But we really have to look at it in totality.
Right.
Do you have an idea of how much money can be saved by retrofitting?
I am just getting started to look at that, so I don't know the answer to that question, but that will be a big part of my assignment.
And let me add, Cecil's going to come up, but let me just add that, Retrofitting has obviously not proceeded in any meaningful way. In a set of buildings that are the largest collection of public housing buildings anywhere in the country. So this is an unpainted canvas. Bluntly, I wish it wasn't an unpainted canvas. I wish there had been real action on this front before. But we're starting from scratch, but we're very adamant. This has to be part of what we do. And retrofit's a much bigger issue than just NYCHA for us. But this is the best place to start in many ways. Let me bring up Cecil.
Yeah, the only point that I was going to make is we're going to hit it from both ends, not just the revenue side, but the cost side as well. So as we make our operations more efficient, we'll also be able to get a lot more work done as we move forward there as well.
Yes. On the infill thing, there's a bunch of, you guys have right now a bunch of specific proposals from developers that were submitted, I don't know, back in November, I think. And you've been, I assume, been looking at them. And what's going to happen with that? I mean, and I think I'd like to ask whoever wants to answer that
I'm going to start, and I think the deputy mayor may have something to add if you'd like to join us. I mean, I know you're very comfortable in your seat in the front row, but I'll just start by saying again, the previous approach we rejected, and this is entirely starting over. Let the deputy mayor jump in.
I mean, I think that the answer to that is that because the way in which the solicitation went out in the prior administration does not reflect the current values of where this administration is going with our affordable housing plan, our intention is to re-engage on those sites over some period of time after this community planning process. So I think it would be fair to say that those particular proposals are not the ones we're going to be moving forward with.
Are you specifically talking about 80-20? Is that the issue?
I'm not talking about 80-20. I'm talking about the responses to that solicitation are not the ones we're going to be moving forward on. We haven't made a decision as to what the ultimate programming of any of those sites would be, but we are going to have a restart and reevaluate all of this in the context of this much more stakeholder building process with respect to what those opportunities are for those infill sites and potentially different sites.
Reset. Reset is the key thing.
It's a do-over.
Do-over.
A do-over.
How many of you used to play on the playground? Do-over. It's a total reset. We are starting from scratch. Questions? Anybody else on topic? Then we'll go to off topic. Last call, going once. On topic, yes.
HPD, sorry, Ms. Bean. 165,000 units, according to the Bloomberg administration, were, it's the same phrase you use, preserved or created, I think. And there's some debate about what people say is affordable versus what is actually affordable within that subset. So can you address that and tell me what, if you've taken a look at that 165,000, and what do you see?
So, I mean, the 165,000 serves a range of bands of income, and I think it's critically important that we serve a range of bands of income. For one reason, we have an incredible array of families, both working families, the lowest income of families, and all the way up to really working class families who are trying to make a go of it in New York. So we will be looking at both how we serve more of the very lowest income, but we will also be looking at how do we serve those working families that we also need to keep and retain, to attract and retain in New York City.
And I would add that thank you. I would add that, look, we're trying to do a couple of things at once here. It's ambitious, and we know it's ambitious. We're trying to speed up the pace. A lot of people say, well, how are you going to speed up the pace? Well, for one thing, we're using very different tools than existed before. We're using mandatory inclusionary zoning. We're using a change in the approach to our pension fund dollars, a very, very different approach. We're going to start with a $1 billion investment in affordable housing out of our pension funds. We're talking about changing the tax code to end the practice of basically rewarding the land being held vacant with taxpayer subsidies. A lot of things. We're obviously going to go at the illegal units that need to be brought up to code, the basement apartments, et cetera. There's so many fronts that we're adding that are brand new elements of this equation. By the way, as a backdrop, we also, thank God, at this moment, I am knocking on wood, happen to have a strong housing market, which I think will strengthen a lot of these efforts. And finally, we're taking a coordinated approach between all elements of government. Kyle Kimball is here because EDC is part of this package. Carl Weiss brought yesterday city planning is part of this. This is one big unified approach that did not exist in the same way previously. So we believe we can get at the ambitious goal, but we're also trying to do, as Vicki indicated, reach the whole income bandwidth. Now, some elements of the Bloomberg plan, in my opinion, over-favored the highest ends of the income scale within affordability. I think there's some objective proof that there was more emphasis on certain neighborhoods than the totality of the 5 boroughs. It's a lot of things we want to improve. I'm a big believer in a tiered approach where you focus equal amounts on folks who make, you know, $0 to $20,000 family income, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, et cetera. So we're going to look to create a better equity in the approach, but at the same time drive those numbers that people, you know, represent the units people desperately need. Last call on topic, once, twice, on topic, now still in English, once, twice. You got my joke, I like you so much. 3 times. Now, oh man, you can't put up your hand at 3 times. What is it?
Quickly, when would you restore the preference for homeless people for NYCHA apartments and section?
This is, and again, we've got a whole team here, and we also have our new Homeless Services Commissioner. We, Gilbert Taylor, we are all working together to figure out how we address the homelessness issue writ large. You've heard me talk about the number one thing I want to do differently is find a pathway to a prevention program, which I think was effective in the past. We do have to find ways, of course, to get down the historic number of people in shelter. That historic figure sadly achieved in the previous administration and left to us, and we have to fix it because people are suffering. So we'll talk with NYCHA about what NYCHA's role will be in that, but that's a conversation we have to do as part of a larger planning process to address homelessness. Okay, we're going to off topic.
Mr. Mayor, since we're in Harlem, I was curious if you had any thoughts on Reverend Mike Walrond and whether or not you two have had any discussions about his congressional campaign.
I think the world of Pastor Walrond. He is a good friend. Have not talked to him since his announcement. I look forward to talking to him. But again, we will have longer conversations about the future with all the different players in this community going forward. So just want to express my real respect for him, but haven't really looked at the election up here. It's not time to yet. Yes?
There was a bill introduced in the city council by I think Annabelle Palmer and Richie Torres that they're considering some kind of extension of the living wage bill that I think addresses whether or not developments that get subsidies and their relationship with unions, and I'm just wondering if you have a position on that.
I haven't seen the bill. We're obviously, have talked about this for a long time, we're very interested in expanding the living wage approach. We're going to have a lot more to say about that shortly, but I haven't seen this particular piece of legislation, so I look forward to seeing it and working with anyone who wants our effort to achieve living wage opportunities for folks who work for companies subsidized by the city. We think this is something there's a tremendous opportunity to build upon, and we'll have more to say on that soon. Last call off topic, yes.
Mr. Mayor, about a week ago, the New York Times revealed your true height. I was curious, do you really not know your height until a week ago?
In the interest of full transparency, I'm minding my own business, and I'm in my bedroom, and the First Lady orders me to stand. No, I'm sorry, I was in my living room, and the First Lady ordered me in no uncertain terms to go stand by a closet which she had made markers on of different height levels with her tape measure. It's indicated in one of the articles that this was like a systematic effort. I'd just like to say this was Shirlane with her tape measure and a pencil. So, and she put them on the wall, and she made me wear my socks only, not shoes, and I stood against the wall, and she has declared now this new height. I personally have not had that verified by other sources, but I have no reason to disbelieve the First Lady. A lot of people have said to me when I said what I believe to be true, that I was 6'5" or 6'6" with these shoes that have probably about an inch of sole on them. I thought I was telling the whole truth and nothing but the truth. But I would never, ever disagree with the First Lady in public. So I guess that's my new height now.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks very much, everyone.